Have you ever walked past something broken and seen beauty no one else could? In this video, we're taking forgotten things, trash, old jugs, cracked stone, and turning them into something magical for your garden. Welcome to Revive Nature, where waste finds new purpose. This video is packed with original DIY trash garden ideas, perfect for small yards, patios, and creative spaces. We've included timestamps, so feel free to jump around or watch it all the way through. Got questions? Drop a comment. Like what you see? Take the idea, make it your own, and build it with whatever you already have. In the heart of a small English-style backyard, where the air is scented with blooming marigolds and the gentle rustle of ornamental grasses, lies a spiral, not of stone alone, but of memories reimagined. Shattered jugs once forgotten behind a dusty farmhouse have been transformed, each fragment kissed by colors of lavender, sage, and soft mustard. They rest among polished pebbles, forming a winding border that dances like a storybook path. This spiral edging does more than define the flower beds, it whispers whimsy into every corner of the garden. Each curve leads the eye through bursts of golden chrysanthemums, rich purple asters, and the soft blush of Japanese anemones. The jugs, once vessels for water or grain, now cradle creeping thyme and moss, allowing life to reclaim what was once discarded. Their broken shapes add texture, contrast, and history, as if the earth herself cradled these pieces into art. In the center of the spiral sits a single clay bowl, gathering morning dew, inviting butterflies and birds for a quiet sip. Children tiptoe around the maze, tracing the trail with wide eyes and gentle steps. Even adults, weary from the world, feel a pull to follow the path, to sit at its end under the bamboo pergola, where vines twist gently in the breeze and time slows to the rhythm of rustling leaves. This isn't just a border, it's an invitation. An ode to the beauty of imperfection. A celebration of reusing the overlooked. And in this tiny space, where every pebble and shard has been placed with care, the garden sings a new story, one of transformation, color, and quiet joy. In the soft light of an early autumn morning, the garden awakens, not with silence, but with color. Lining the winding paths are jug totems, rising like cheerful sentinels from the earth. Once forgotten clay vessels, aged and chipped by time, are now reborn, painted with swirling florals, playful dots, and patchwork patterns that echo the joy of childhood and the warmth of handmade traditions. Each totem stands with its own personality. One leans slightly, almost as if whispering secrets to the wind. Another wears soft mint green stripes with golden daisy motifs. Together, they dance in unison beside beds of blooming marigolds and the dusky pinks of sedum autumn joy. They do not merely edge the garden, they frame it with soul. This tiny backyard, barely the size of a small patio, becomes a celebration of creativity. Between each totem, bees flit from flower to flower, and butterflies pause briefly on the painted surfaces, mistaking them for blooms. Children passing by reach out to touch the textures, curious about the colors, the patterns, the way the jugs seem to lean toward them, smiling without faces. The totems hold more than just beauty. They hold stories, of family weekends spent painting in the garden, of salvaging old jugs from thrift shops and junk piles, of laughter over spilled paint and accidental masterpieces. Each stack is imperfectly perfect, like the garden itself. In a world chasing polished perfection, this edge of totems dares to be bold, quirky, and full of life. And as the sun lowers and casts golden shadows across the painted surfaces, the garden offers a quiet truth. Art can live in the soil, in the broken, in the reused, and it can bloom right along with the flowers. There's a quiet magic that lives at the far end of this tiny backyard, a spot where time seems to slow down, and stories of the past whisper through aged wood and worn clay. An old door, long separated from its hinges, now stands tall once more, not to welcome people in, but to cradle blooms and beauty. Its paint, faded, flaking, and soft to the eye, tells of decades gone by. Once it stood proud in a farmhouse hallway, now, it leans gently against a bamboo fence, repurposed as the soul of a miniature garden sanctuary. From its antique frame hang clay jugs, each uniquely shaped, each lovingly hand-painted and filled with seasonal color. Marigolds burst from one, like golden laughter. Asters trail from another, purple and delicate. The base of the door is ringed with jugs of all kinds, some cracked, others whole, nestled in crushed stone and small ornamental grasses. They seem to speak to one another in silence, clay to clay, memory to memory. This is not a large garden. It is no more than a nook, a soft corner near the patio, perhaps only 2 steps wide, but within it blooms a world of texture, scent, and nostalgia. Here, someone has placed a wicker chair, aged and sun-warmed, with a faded pillow sewn from floral fabric. It is an invitation to sit, to breathe, to remember. Above, A quiet breeze stirs the anemones and rustles the vines crawling slowly up the door. A butterfly lands for a moment on a chipped jug, as if drawn by the poetry of imperfection. This is no grand design. It is humble, repurposed, imperfect. And that is why it feels like home. Because it reminds us that beauty often lives not in what is new, but in what is lovingly brought back to life. Along the narrow stretch of earth winding through a small backyard, a path emerges, one that doesn't just lead you through the garden, but invites you to slow down and notice the details. This path, edged not by expensive stone or metal, but by the simplest of materials, clay bottles and smooth stones, tells a story of intention, artistry, and warmth. Each bottle, salvaged and cleaned, stands half-buried like a loyal guard, its surface kissed with hand-painted petals or swirling leaves in hues of soft ochre, faded teal, and misty lavender. Between them, river stones rest like ancient memories, their rounded bodies shaped by water and time. Together, they form a border that is both elegant and grounded, rustic yet refined. The path doesn't demand attention, yet it holds your gaze. On one side, chrysanthemums spill into the walkway like golden confetti. On the other, sedum autumn joy blushes in pink, holding the light of late afternoon. Every few steps, a clay bottle leans slightly, its open mouth filled with moss, thyme, or tiny wildflowers, as though nature had decided to reclaim it with a quiet kiss. This path is more than function. It is emotion carved into soil. It is the joy of discovering beauty in the forgotten, the satisfaction of turning something ordinary into a frame for the extraordinary. Children follow it with curious eyes, adults with softened hearts. It feels both new and ancient, like something out of a grandmother's story. At its end sits a simple garden bench beside a rusted iron gate, overgrown with ivy and secrets. Here, the world hushes. And in that hush, the border sings, not loudly, but sweetly, of hands that painted, stones that waited, and a garden made lovely not by what it had, but by what it made from what it had left. At the far corner of the garden, Tucked gently beneath the dappled shade of a leafy pergola, rests a forgotten jug, cracked at its rim, one side missing, yet somehow still full of life. Once used for storing grain or carrying water, the jug has found a new calling. Now it cradles a shallow pool, glistening with morning light and floating petals, inviting the soft flutter of wings to dance above it. Around this jug, a circle forms, not of marble or grand design, but of painted stones and blooming flowers. Chrysanthemums stand proud in golden rust, while creeping time spills like lace between the cracks. Asters bob gently in the breeze, and the sweet scent of marigolds draws in bees, butterflies, and birds alike. It's a circle of stillness, yet always alive. The jug itself has been given new color. Gentle strokes of indigo and cloud-white patterns now adorn its weathered clay. These were painted not with perfection, but with love. It leans slightly, a testament to time and age, and from its open mouth, water flows just enough to ripple. A bird dips in for a drink, then another, until the air fills with soft chirps and flutters. This bird bath is not an ornament. It is an offering, a gift to the garden and its guests. It shows that even what is broken, even what was once discarded, can become a centerpiece. A place where life gathers, where beauty returns. Around the base, moss softens the edges, and tiny wildflowers bloom as if in celebration. The garden path curves gently past, encouraging visitors to pause, observe, listen. And in that pause, something happens. The garden becomes more than a space. It becomes a sanctuary. In this small, soulful creation, the jug does not hide its cracks. It wears them proudly. Because here, even broken things are beautiful, especially when they give life back to the world around them. There's something tender about the quiet corners of a garden, the overlooked spaces where shadow and sunlight meet, where forgotten objects come to rest. In this tiny backyard framed by old fencing, clay jugs rise from the soil like secrets half-whispered. Some lean gently, others stand boldly tilted, all of them nestled into the earth like they've always belonged there. Their surfaces, once dusty and dull, now gleam with color. Gentle strokes of sage green, coral orange, and soft ivory swirl across their tops, mingling with hand-drawn patterns of petals and vines. No two are the same. Each jug tells its own story, of hands that painted with joy, of a garden that welcomed imperfection, of a soul that saw potential in the discarded. Around them, fall flowers bloom in profusion. Bright yellow marigolds reach for the sun, while chrysanthemums open like golden suns from within. Between the jugs, creeping time and moss soften the lines, blurring where clay ends and earth begins. The fence behind, weathered and wrapped in ivy, serves as the perfect backdrop to this humble installation. But these aren't just decorative touches. They are anchors. They frame the garden with warmth, draw the eye to forgotten places, and remind visitors that beauty is not always in the center. Sometimes, it waits patiently in the margins. Birds rest nearby. Butterflies glide lazily through the dappled light. And as you sit quietly, the half-buried jugs seem to breathe with the garden, sharing in its rhythm, a steady pulse of life, color, and calm. In this small act of reuse, a fence corner becomes something more. It becomes a story of softness, of slowing down, of seeing beauty not only in what stands tall and perfect, but in what leans, rests, and gently blooms where no one expected it to. In a quiet corner where the fence meets the earth, the garden begins to climb. What once was a bare wooden wall, faded and silent, now blooms like a canvas reborn. Upcycled clay jugs and flower pots cling to its surface like blossoms on a vine, each one bursting with life, each one telling a quiet story of revival. Painted in the soft hues of cottage warmth, blush pink, sage green, muted blue, the jugs have shed their past as kitchen vessels. Now, they cradle bright orange marigolds, whispering asters, and delicate ivy that tumbles from their lips like laughter. The flower pots, mismatched in shape but united in purpose, host trailing herbs and cheerful blooms that spill from their rims like overflowing joy. Each container is mounted with care, some tilted as if caught in motion, others standing proud like guardians of the garden wall. Together, they form a vertical mosaic of color and texture, drawing the eye upward, giving height and character to the small space they adorn. Beneath them, a scatter of chrysanthemums nod gently in the breeze, as if in approval. This fence was never meant to be plain. It only waited for someone to see the potential in its weathered boards. Now, it stands as a living gallery, a celebration of DIY creativity, of saving what could be reused, of transforming what others may call junk into something deeply inviting. In the soft golden light of late afternoon, the garden glows. The jugs shimmer with dew, the flowers sway gently, and the whole wall hums with contentment. It's more than just a fence now, it's a statement. A reminder that vertical spaces are not empty, but waiting. That even the smallest patio or narrowest backyard can reach skyward in color and life. And perhaps, most of all, it's a reminder that with just a few old jugs and a splash of paint, any wall can be turned into a garden worth gazing at, again and again. The garden speaks in the language of waves, not with water, but with shape, tone, and the slow, soothing rhythm of coastal colors. Nestled in the corner of a small backyard, where driftwood meets flowers and sea glass glimmers like forgotten treasure, lies a border unlike any other. Here, cracked clay jugs rise from the earth, each one softened by brush strokes of turquoise, coral, and pearl. They sit beside scalloped shells and smooth beach stones, arranged in gentle curves that echo the flow of tides. Some jugs cradle succulents like sea creatures sleeping in quiet tide pools. Others pour forth tiny blooms, as if the garden itself had learned to mimic the shore. Around them bloom sedum autumn joy and clusters of snowy asters, their colors subtle and sea-swept. Coastal grasses sway softly behind them, moving like sea foam on a breeze. The air feels different here, lighter, calmer, as though the ocean is just beyond the fence. The border doesn't just edge the garden, it transports it. It becomes a place where memories of sandy toes and seashell hunts linger between petals. A low wooden bench nearby offers a place to sit and watch as butterflies land on painted jugs adorned with hand-drawn fish, waves, and coral shapes. Children love this place. They run their fingers across the shells, pick up sea glass like treasure, ask if the jugs came from a shipwreck. Adults pause, their breath slowing. The seascape is both real and imagined, not just a design, but a dream grounded in earth and clay. And in that dream, every shell, every jug, every brush of color holds a secret, that the sea doesn't have to be far away. It can live in your garden. It can bloom with your flowers. And all it takes is a few forgotten things, and the will to give them a new tide. In the quiet threshold between the everyday and the enchanted, there stands an arch, not carved from marble or shaped from iron, but formed from two old wooden doors, lovingly reclaimed and given a second life. Their paint is chipped and weather-worn, shades of sea glass blue and faded cream, telling silent tales of the rooms they once guarded. Now, they stand together like sentinels of a secret garden, their frames joined above by a beam wrapped in flowering vines. From this beam, jugs dangle like lanterns of the earth, painted, patched, and proudly imperfect. Each one cradles a cascade of blooms, Japanese anemones trailing like silk, golden marigolds bursting like suns, and sedum autumn joy draping like ribbons of blush and burgundy. The garden beyond the arch hums with life. A cobbled path leads the wanderer deeper, flanked by asters and chrysanthemums that nod gently in the breeze. A robin perches briefly on one of the jugs, then flits away. The scent of thyme and soil lingers, grounding the moment in memory. This archway is more than a decorative entry. It is a pause, a promise, a passage. It invites all who pass beneath to leave behind the noise and step into a space of wonder, a world built not with wealth, but with warmth, not with newness, but with intention. It tells a story of doors that no longer open homes, but open hearts. Of jugs that once carried water, now overflowing with color. Of a garden that whispers, gently, always gently, that beauty doesn't need perfection to bloom. For those who step beneath, the world shifts slightly. The air feels richer. The day feels softer. And the garden, framed by these humble doors and hanging jugs, feels like a secret shared just with you. Nestled beneath the arch of an old hydrangea, where the light filters through petals and vines like a dream, lies a tiny world, a garden within a garden. Built with tender hands and a playful heart, this miniature cottage scene uses nothing more than broken clay, scattered stones, and imagination to bring joy to all who discover it. The cottage itself is no larger than a shoebox. Its walls are made of flat stones, stacked with care and filled with moss. The door, crafted from a weathered slat of wood, stands slightly ajar, as though inviting fairies or curious eyes to peek inside. Tiny clay jugs sit outside like guardians, some chipped, some whole, all planted with little sprigs of sedum, thyme, or mossy tufts that look like miniature trees. Around the cottage, the yard blooms in harmony with the larger garden. Marigolds tower like golden trees. Asters bend gently, casting shade over the scene. Pebbles form a winding path leading up to the door, and at its base lies a garden bench, no more than the size of a matchbox, carved from bark and twig. Children stumble upon it and freeze, captivated. Adults lean in close, smiling softly. The world grows quieter here. The details draw you in, a leaf used as a roof tile, a broken pot half buried and turned into a garden bed, a hand-painted jug the size of a fist holding a single daisy bloom. It's not just cute, it's meaningful. Every broken shard, every smooth stone, every recycled piece serves a purpose. It teaches that even the smallest fragments can hold magic when seen with the right eyes. This miniature cottage isn't just decoration. It's a story made real. A symbol of how creativity can bloom anywhere, even from what was once cracked, tossed, or forgotten. And in the soft hush of a garden afternoon, it reminds us, sometimes, the biggest wonder comes in the tiniest places.